Guys, and welcome back to another Big Al Devlin video. Here, this video is all about a continuation of my bouncer series, and it's actually a direct follow-on, really, from the video that will be all about what is assault, okay, and how to protect yourself from being prosecuted from assault. Because as doorman, you know, the reality is you're going to find yourself in violent situations more often than a normal Joe gun out there. It's just part and parcel of your job, and because you're in a violent situation, there's always that possibility you're going to get done for assault. Okay, because you might be ending up in a bit of fisticuffs with someone, and if the police or the authorities deem it that the force you used was excessive, you're in trouble. Okay, so guys, if you haven't watched it already, please check that video out, because it is very important, because I give you basically a step-by-step process on how to try and do your best at protecting yourself against prosecution. If people are going to charge you with assault, you can't stop that. Okay, if you have hit someone, or if you have grabbed and dragged someone and hurt them in the process of evicting them out of a venue, and they charge you with assault, you can't stop that. But you can at least stop yourself being found guilty by having followed the step-by-step process that I've given you there, or at least try and help yourself from being found guilty. You know, because it shows a graded sort of upscaling of dealing with the idiots in that particular state. But this video is a completely different video, really, and in many ways I'm kind of reluctant to do it in some ways, because I don't want to be teaching people how to fight and hurt people as such within this situation of door work, because ultimately, as a doorman, you've got to understand your role is there to protect people, not to hurt people. Okay, you're there to protect the venue, the property itself, and you're there to protect the customers, and you're there to protect the other members of staff. Okay, and ultimately that is your job. Okay, now sometimes you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs, and sometimes the unfortunate reality is you do have to be in fights. Okay, you have to fight people in order to perform your job correctly. But this is going to be me sharing some of the encounters that I had and experiences that I had where the shit really does hit the fan, where things become more violent than originally anticipated, or more violent than what I described in the previous sort of circumstances in the previous video. Just sort of everyday occurrences where people mouth off to you or don't want to leave the building, so you got to grab them, drag them, and all the rest of it. Or if they just punch you once, so you punch them once back, they knock them out. You know, we're not talking those situations. We're talking situations where people are properly violent. Okay, and actually, the inspiration for this video was because someone requested it in the comment section, and that is, you know, how do you handle people, or the unfair advantages that customers often have over you as a doorman. That is, they could be outnumbering you, they could be armed, things like this. Well, the first and foremost thing that customers have on you, and things that you need to be aware of, we're going to get into how to handle sort of multiple opponents in just a minute, so you can skip this bit if you want, guys. I'm going to be talking for a couple of minutes about, again, the legalities of it, because it's a major part of being a doorman. If you don't want to hear about it, guys, I don't think you should be a doorman, because you need to know your legalities. The last thing you want to do is go and end up with a criminal record for no good reason. But the first and major advantage that the customer has over you is that as an employee of the building and of the venue, chances are you're there working there week in, week out, and certainly your identification will be known. Your name, where you live, your pay slips, they're all going to be on site. Okay, the customer could be Sweet Fanny Adam. He might not even be from the same country. He might be here on holiday. He could be from another city. He could be a local just down the road. Whatever, but the chances are he's going to get away with assault much more easily than you are, because he has to be found. And so the police, they like an easy job. And this is not me having a go at the police by any means whatsoever. It's human nature. If they're not going to necessarily try and chase down someone who's hit you. They're not going to, like, well, how the hell are we going to find out who they are? They're not going to find out who they are. They're not going to police resources, and if you get seriously hurt, like stabbed or something, they're not going to waste their resources going to find someone who's just punched you. However, if a customer complains and says, yes, the doorman, in my case, the big ginger doorman with the beard and the tattoos on his left arm and all that, assaulted me, well, you know, and look at the injuries they've given me, they do it on the same night it happens or whatever, then obviously in that situation, you kind of, well, you as the doorman are the easy arrest or the easy one to pursue. Now, luckily, most of the time, most policemen, and again, this is actually me praising the police in this case, will actually kind of be on your side. They'll understand that you're kind of doing a similar job to them, not the same job. I'm not comparing us to police, but you're doing a similar job. You're doing a lot of the dirty work they would have to do if we weren't around. They'd be having to deal with these arseholes instead of us if we weren't around. Okay, and some police, they'll go like, yeah, whatever. They'll just look past it. Okay, but in many ways, they do have a legal obligation, and if they're a pen pusher and really do follow things by the letter, and they can tell that, you know, and that this person is an arsehole, but fuck it, well, I'll get an easy arrest on my crib sheet or whatever. I'll make myself look good. I'll go charge that doorman with assault, and because, well, it's an easy thing to do. Be aware of that, guys. The first advantage that customers have over you as a doorman is that you are a fixed location. You're easily identifiable, and so if there is a fight, they end up getting hurt, and they take it bad. They don't take it like a man and go, you know what, I got my ass whooped there, I kind of deserved that, I was an arsehole. Instead, most of the time the customer will go, fuck him then, I'll tell you what, I'll go to the police, fucking breaking my nose, fucking wanker. They'll go to the police, and they'll have you done for assault. Because they're cowards, okay? And it happens a lot more often than you can imagine, to be honest. There's not a lot of men out there these days with honour, you know, unfortunately. And those who do have it are probably working on the doors with you, okay? So unfortunately, that is something that you do have to consider. However, you then find yourselves in different situations where you might find yourself having to be more violent than what I previously described in the previous video, which is general rule of thumb is just grab and drag, where you are having to strike your opponent and you are having to mess them up a little bit, so to speak. Now, a couple of circumstances, of course, is when a customer or a protagonist is armed, if they have a knife or gun on them. Now, touch wood, I've never encountered a gun. Being in England, guns are very scarce and very rare, but obviously if you're working in America watching this, then obviously it's a much higher chance of things happening. Now, one of the things, and my advice with guns, well, I don't know. I've not handled guns, and I don't expect to ever be in that situation. Logically, for me, if you notice someone's got a gun, is to close the distance, get up close, grab them and disarm them of the gun, or, you know, keep yourself safe, get out of the way, hide and alert the police, the authorities, that you have an armed man on site, and then, you know, obviously try and disarm them if possible, but make sure that as many people get out of safe as possible. Why the person's brought a gun into a club, I wouldn't know. But sometimes blades, well, they are a bit more common. And I have had blades pulled out on me before when I've been on the doors. Various knives of all shapes and sizes. And the majority of the time it's actually been in revenge. Okay? It's very rare that someone will actually bring a blade to the venue with them. With the intention of using it initially. Okay, they might have it for self-defense, which is stupid. You should learn to fight with your fists, guys. You don't need a knife to do that. Okay, but sometimes they will have it on them with the intention of then hurting a doorman in retaliation for being kicked out of a venue, and this has happened to me a couple of times. One particular example that I will talk about will be when there was a guy who was I kicked him out because basically he was being lippy with me all night. He was being lippy with me all night, and that's not reason enough necessarily to get rid of him. But then, you know, he then just tried to walk. I was on the front door. He tried to walk away with one of our glasses, with his beer in it or whatever he was drinking at the time. And I said, "No, sir, you can't leave with the glass. Please finish your drink first, or leave the glass here." Very polite, very well mannered to him. Okay, and he turned around and he goes, "No, I'm taking it with me." And I said, no, sir, you're not. You can't take the glass away. It's not your property. Leave it here. You can finish your drink by all means, and then leave. But you cannot take the glass with you, empty or full. It doesn't matter. You can't take it with you. And he goes, well, you're not going to stop me, are you? You and whose army? You know, fucking cheeky little cunt. I thought. Anyway. I gave him, I think, 3 warnings. I said, sir, I'm telling you now, you must return the glass. And that's when he kind of got up close and go, come on then, what, stop me taking it. So I just grabbed him round the head. He put his hood up at the time. I don't know why. Why he put his hood up? One, we've already got him on the CCTV. If he was going to do something stupid like stab me or glass me, we've already got his identification anyway, because he was walking without his hood on anyway up to that point. But why put your hood up? What, you think it's going to intimidate me? No, it just gives me something to fucking grab. So I grabbed the guy round round his head via his hood that he just put up and twisted it around his head. Brought his head down and held him there one-handed. I held him there one-handed, got his glass out of his hand, poured the beer on him, and pushed him away. And I said, yeah, you fucking not so hard now, are you? Now fuck off. And put the glass back inside the pub. Now he didn't like that, obviously. And he returned, I don't know, maybe 10-15 minutes after that particular encounter, and I saw him walking from across the other side of the road, and I clocked him. I clocked him, and he was about a minute away from the venue, so I had plenty of time to watch him. And he was walking, and one place where a lot of people, for some reason these days, like to carry blades. He's obviously gone and got a knife from somewhere. He obviously didn't have a knife with him the first time out. I assume his intention was to try and glass me. That didn't work out for him. So he, like the fucking coward, decides to come back with a knife, as I say. And I'm watching him walk down the street towards me, and he's walking with his hand on his crotch, which is a slightly unusual way to walk. Obviously, it's not a natural gait, it's not a natural walking pattern. And I'm well aware that a lot of times people will keep blades in their crotch area because they're not likely to be searched round there. Men don't like touching other men's penises. It's as simple as that. And so they think if they hide the blade there, that people are dumb enough not to notice. Okay, yeah, but there's an increased chance that they can carry the blade without being noticed. But if you're cute to it and you know of it, you're walking like how he was walking. It's obvious what he's got. He's got a blade, or he's got something stuffed down his underwear, and he wants to use it on me. And I knew it was a revenge chat because he came, you know the look in the eyes. The eyes never lie. And so he came up, and before he had any chance of getting in range, because he was a lot shorter than me. He was he was about 5'6", something like that. I'm about 6'3", so it was a big height difference, so a big reach difference between the two of us. So I just thought, fuck this. I grabbed him and fucking hit his head off the door frame, maybe 2 or 3 times before I felt his legs go limp. And I put him down on the ground, searched him, and there was a blade on him. Yeah, fucking wanker. Yeah, so obviously, in those situations, obviously, people might have blades on them, and the first thing to do is to be perceptive, to notice the patterns of how people act when they are carrying a blade. They have a certain way about them, certain level of confidence, or they might be, a little bit more nervous around you, especially if you do pat down and stuff. And as I say, typically you're not going to find people trying to walk into your venue with blades, and if they are, they've got it for a very specific reason, either because they're going to try and rob their drug dealer or whatever it might be. Okay, people, they're not typically carry blades on them into venues because they know they're going to get searched, and if they get searched, they're going to get in trouble, and they're going to have to potentially use it. And most people who have knives don't actually want to use them. Unless they, like how I've just previously described, where they purposely go to get it, to use it for a very specific reason. And in which case, then you need to deal with it how I did. You act quickly, you act aggressively, and you act in a manner which neutralizes them as quickly as possible. The other way to minimize the threat is obviously, whilst working, wear a stab vest. Okay, stab vests are available. There are various degrees of quality, and I would always say get one that is good quality. You do not want to wear a stab vest thinking that you're immune to a knife and then you go and get stabbed. I've seen some stab vests when they've been stabbed with not a very sharp knife, not even a very strong knife or whatever, and it's gone straight through the metal plating that is, stuffed within the actual jacket itself. Well, it's not stab proof then, is it? Not all stab vests are actually stab proof, guys. So they protect you against slashes, but not actual stabbing, and they're the lethal ones. Slashes, they're going to leave you with a nasty scar maybe, but they're not going to kill you unless it's across the throat. But stabs, they will kill you, so you want to protect yourself against being stabbed. So a stab vest is always a good investment if you're working on a board where knives are pretty common. I never wore one, but in hindsight, perhaps I should have. But luckily, I'm here alive, so it didn't matter in the end. But yeah, stab vests are another thing that you can use. There's no problem wearing armor to protect yourself at the end of the day. Now that's dealing with blades, and dealing with blades on like certain techniques on how to handle knives. Well, you've got to understand. In the medieval times or whatever, when swords and knives were used commonly, they were used commonly because they gave you a major advantage over someone who was unarmed. If someone pulls a knife out on you, it's very, very difficult to handle it. You need speed, you need precision, and you need to be able to disable that person quickly and know exactly what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, you need to comply with them to some degree. Okay, there's no point taking a knife into the gut or into the throat for just because you're being braver than you should. If you don't know how to handle the situation, then don't expect do not put that pressure onto yourself. Is what I would say. There are certain people, some ways you've got to understand that a lot of people also know how to use a knife, and this is not something I'm going to show on here for obvious reasons. I don't want to teach people how to use a knife, but generally speaking, if people hold the knife out in front of them towards you, they keep the knife very close to you rather than away from you, or they keep it up here and sort of ice pick sort of grip. Generally speaking, they're people who don't know how to use a knife, but someone who keeps a knife away from you, hidden or far away from you, they know how to use a knife, generally speaking. And I'm not going to give you the reasons why or how they can use a knife in those situations in comparison, but generally speaking, because this is YouTube, anyone can watch it, and I'm not going to teach people how to use knives. I'm a martial artist, I know how to, and I'm not sharing that knowledge with people. I'm making that active decision. I'm not teaching people how to use weapons, but I will teach people how to protect themselves against it. And generally speaking, if they have the knife up high, you can easily intercept the block, and block the attack, okay? And if they hold the knife out in front, then you've got a lot of arm to grab onto, and you can try and control them via their arm ultimately in those situations. But that's something again that is something I've experienced, but is something you don't experience often. Weapons aren't used against dormant as often as you would think. The other situation, of course, is being outnumbered. Okay, now this really shouldn't happen that often, but it does actually happen a lot more than you think, because people your employers, right, they try to save money. They don't want to employ a full 8-man team or 4-man team or whatever the number of people was required to run a particular venue, depending on its size. They'll always probably employ more like half the numbers they need. Okay, and as a result, I mean, if you had a full squad of guys, all with radios, you'd all be communicating. If you can predict where the trouble is going to happen, you go, watch the guy in the blue sweater to floor 2, boom, boom, boom. And then when the trouble kicks off, you go, yeah, we got trouble, floor 2, come in now, bang, or whatever. And so everyone's converging on that position. And all of a sudden, yeah, there might be a couple of guys who are starting off, and you tend to work more often in pairs where possible. 2 doormen are on the point there and then immediately, and then all of a sudden another 2 more, and then another 2 more. You know what I mean. So generally speaking, numbers can actually be on your side, despite the fact that the venue might have 1,000 people and there's only like 6, 8 doormen at most or whatever. It doesn't actually matter because you work as a team more coherently. You have radios and stuff to work together correctly. So numbers is not something that you get so much within big, well-organized venues. But if you're working, say, on a small pub, where, or on a quiet night, where, like on a Sunday, for example, where I worked, it was a one-man team, one person. You're on yourself, one-man door, and you're watching the whole pub. The reason is it's because it tends to be quite quiet, apart from, of course, on the football season, in which case it can be very busy. But even when it's quiet, you can still get people kicking off. Just because it's quiet doesn't mean there's less violence. It just decreases the chance of there being violence, but it can still, of course, occur. And of course, it can, even on a normal night, kick off where lots of people get involved. And there's two situations that I'll talk about here and how I handled each one. The first one was early on in my door career, actually. For some reason, it was the football season. I don't know why, but 20 lads all of a sudden decided that they wanted to rush the front door of the pub there. Me and my head doorman were. We had another doorman inside the pub, and us two were at the front of the pub, dealing with, people coming in and out, controlling the flow of people. For some reason, they charged. It wasn't directed at us. I don't know what they were doing. I still, to this day, don't know their motive. They wanted to fight their way in for whatever reason. And immediately, my initial thing, and I actually did wrong here. I mean, I did right, but I also did kind of, like, there was better things I could have done, and I learnt. The first thing I did was I powered straight into them, and I grabbed the first two of them who charged us right round the throat straight away, and I fucking threw them. I must have thrown them about 4 foot each, one in each hand, picked them up because they're quite small, and I just went through him, and they threw him into the wall, and they were kind of taken out by the impact of them being thrown into the wall. I then pulled into the rest of the group of them and started trading blows. I didn't give a shit. Bang, bang, bang. Anyway, my head doorman, who had a lot more experience than me, and he was completely right in this situation, goes, Ali, go over here. And what he had done was, in our pub, there was, it was more like a coach in almost, like sort of entrance. There was these big archway doors, and the doors were obviously split into two. But each door could allow about two people widthways to go through at a time. So if we opened both doors, 4 people at a time could go through the front entrance into the pub. So he closed one of the doors and locked it. And then only 2 people at a time could, in theory, get into the pub at the same time. And he called me back, and I was like, oh yeah, great idea. So bang, I hit the next person who was there, and I pulled back to him. And so then me and him were filling the entrance, the only way to get into the pub, together. We're side by side. We know we can't get people coming in behind us because the pub was safe behind us, and it was protected by, obviously, the doorman in the actual pub itself, along with other members of staff who were watching our backs. And the front, we could take them on 2 at a time, at most 3 at a time if they really squeezed in. So what we did was we negated their numbers. Yes, there were 20 of them and 2 of us, but instead of, like I was stupidly doing, piling into the centre of them and letting them all attack you at the same time whilst attacking them as best you can and doing a lot of damage, I must admit, I think they were shocked at how aggressive we could be. We were... My head doorman, he was correct. We neutralised their numbers by making 2 of them fight 2 of us at a time, and they were nowhere near capable of doing that, fighting us one-on-one, so to speak. They couldn't do it. They weren't our equals in fighting. As I say, I was quite happy to take 20 of them on by myself. I would have lost, obviously, eventually, but I would have taken a lot of damage. But I'd already taken the first 2 out, and I'd taken about another 2 or 3 out by the time I pulled back to the door. So they're already down to 15. They really want to take us on equally now. And my head doorman was a lot more brutal and aggressive than I am. So if I can do that, what could he do? Sort of thing. He had a reputation for being a right nasty piece of shit, and not someone you mess with at all. So that's one way that you deal with numbers, is you try to control the flow of their numbers. You know the pub and the schematic, or the venue that you're working. You know the schematics of the place far better than they do. You know where the choke points are, and you can direct them through the choke points. And that's one thing I will say, is if you're dealing with large numbers like that, 20 plus people, is you try to funnel them as best as possible, and you call in your team. So there's as many of you as possible versus as few as them as possible. That's the ideal situation, because they will break. They as soon as they lose a few of their number, they will run. Okay, they will bowl it. They ain't gonna hang around. Okay. Now the other situation where I found myself outnumbered was a night when I was by myself on a quiet Sunday, and I had to kick out. I was only kicking out one of them. I was kicking out this one guy who was a kind of happy drunk who then turned into an aggressive drunk. He was causing a lot of distress, and he thought because the pub was quiet, he could do what he wanted, and no one would kick him out. He was being a complete arsehole, and he was making a lot of noise. He was damaging the stalls, the chairs and stuff, by being just dumbass and stupid. He was too drunk. Okay, you come to the pub to get drunk. You don't come to the pub drunk to then act out your drunkenness for no reason, because he wasn't really buying drinks either. So I said, you gotta get out. And I got rid of him, and I think he actually just left with me being verbally telling him, "Come on, get out now," or whatever. I don't even think I even had to pull him out. And but anyway, his mates then follow him. So there's about 5, maybe 6 of them overall. I weren't kicking them out. They could stay. I had no problem with them. It was just their mate was being the arsehole. But then all of a sudden, obviously, I mean, bros before whatever. Well, it's not the wrong saying, isn't it? But you got to stick by your bros, so to speak. So I understand them leaving with him, not leaving him by himself. But then he's starting getting into my face, going, "Why are you kicking me out for? Why are you kicking me out for?" Jumping all around. I think he'd taken cocaine, if I'm honest with you. He'd certainly taken some kind of stimulant. He was so hyper and overreactive that it was definitely cocaine or something very similar that he must have been on, because he just wouldn't understand logic. I think it was that and alcohol combined. He was just so stupid, and he was just trying to threaten me. And then the big guy of the group, who was about half a head taller than myself and similar sort of build, was like, "Oh yeah, you're being an arsehole for throwing it." Whether I was being an arsehole or not, I mean, I wasn't. I made the conscious decision that his mate should not be allowed in that pub. And at the end of the day, I'm the doorman. I've made that decision. I'd given him 3 warnings up to that point as well, bear in mind. I told him, "Mate, calm it down, otherwise you're having to go, alright?" So it's not like I'd just gone in and took him out. I'd given him 3 warnings to calm down. He didn't respond, and so I got rid of him. And the only reason I gave him so many warnings was because the pub was quiet, and I didn't want to kick out one of the few and only customers in there at that point. Anyway, they start threatening me, and they go, "Oh, you're gonna something about, I can't remember what's the word." Anyway, they noticed I had a mate of mine there, and he goes, "Oh, you're only being brave or standing up to us because you got your mate there or whatever." I go, "He ain't my mate. He wasn't. I didn't know who he was, but they must have thought he was a friend of mine or something." I said, "He ain't no mate of mine." I said, "I don't give a shit anyway. Look, there's 5 of you. There's 5 of you, and there's one of me, and if he wants to get involved, whoever he is, yeah, there's 2 of us and 5 of you. You still got the fucking advantage. I'll more than happily square off with you, but I'm on my fucking work at the moment, and I don't really want to fucking fight you, okay? I will if you throw the first punch, but if you really want to fight, I tell you what, I finish here at 12:30. I'll see you right there. You come here at 12:30, and we'll deal with this, okay? But not on my fucking paid time. I'm gonna do you for fucking free, okay?" And they go, "All right, yeah, and yeah, fine, we'll fucking be here. What, 12:30? Yeah, fucking 12:30, mate. 12:30 bang, you come here. 12:30 sharp, you come right here, right that corner there. There's no CCTV there, so don't worry. Neither one of us will get in trouble, and you and your 4 mates can take me on by yourself, because that's what you want. You're afraid that the fact there's 2 of us here at the moment, even though I don't know him over there, doesn't matter. Even if I knew him, you still outnumber us over 2-1. But whatever, you want to outnumber me 5-1, I don't give a fucking shit. You come here at 12:30. And anyway, they never came, and I was quite disappointed. I turned up. I was like, "Yeah, fuck this shit. I'll fucking smack them all." And the thing is, when you're dealing with that, I mean, I was wrong. I should not have been provoking them. But I'd had a bad night the night before. I got clipped on one of the fights in one of the rougher pubs that I do, because I did a double shift at the time. I worked one pub and I did the other pub straight after. And the second pub that straight after was a fucking arsehole of the devil place. It was a fucking horrible place. You'd always end up in fights. And I actually got clipped on by one of the guys who were kicking out, he fucking caught me proper square, and my mouth was kidding me. I mean, kicked him out. He didn't knock me out or anything, but he did. He hurt me. And I just didn't want to fucking tolerate it. I just wanted a quiet night, you know. And I wanted to take it out on them. I was in pain, so I thought I'd put some pain on them, but they never turned up in the end. But if I had been in that sort of situation, bear in mind, as I say, I took it away from the work. I wasn't going to do it whilst I was working unless they attacked me first, because there were street cameras watching. I know where was the CCTV was. I knew exactly where it wasn't. And I said, well, listen, I can't go down there now. I'm working. I need to keep this front door safe. But when I'm not working, this is not my responsibility, this place. Then, if you want to go down there, then fine, we'll do it, you know. So that's why I was talking about doing that like that. It's like I was being paid to protect that place. I wasn't being paid to have my own personal vendetta fights with people. Unless they wanted to fight me to try and get into the pub there and then, I wasn't gonna fucking hurt them in any way whatsoever. But in that situation, how do you deal with numbers? Well, first of all, you deal with the gobshite first. You deal with the leader, okay? There will always be two people in any group greater than three. Well, greater than three or four. Well, three or more people. There's always going to be the first two that you need to deal with. The first one is the alpha. Okay, he's the sort of, or the one who kind of sees himself at least as the alpha. You need to deal with him. Okay, you know who he is because he'd be the gobshite. So, Mister Gobshite over here, the one who I threw them all out for, he's not the alpha as such, but he's the cause of the trouble. Bang, deal with him. He thought he was hard. I would have snapped him in two quite easily. So you deal with the leader of the group, or the loudest of the group first. That makes the quiet ones in the group, who are a little bit more insecure about themselves and about their ability to handle themselves, makes them waver, makes them doubt. Oh shit! Have we made a mistake here? Before they even can think too much about that, watching that mate get flattened, bang! You're straight on to the next one, and he's the sort of the proper or the quiet alpha. There's the loud alpha and there's the quiet alpha. The loud alpha is the gobshite, like I said, and the quiet alpha is the one who was having words with me, going, you know what, we'll have a fucking fight with you then, if that's what you want. And I said, no, well, not on my paid time. Around the corner, I was talking to the second guy who was trying to stand up for his gobshite mate, and he would have been second on the list. And when you deal with the second one, the quiet one, this is the one who generally is the biggest and the strongest in the group, or is the most experienced at fighting. Everyone knows the gobshite, the loud one, is the one who's got the talk, and can sometimes have the walk, but he's certainly got the talk. But everyone knows and silently very much respects the second sort of leader in the group. And as I say, they typically are the biggest and the strongest in the group. You deal with them, and when you deal with them so heavily. You know, you go overboard with how you deal with them. That then, you know, you don't just hit. If it takes one strike, you go overboard with them. You really make sure that they're not getting back up anytime soon. And when you deal with that, essentially what you do is you limit the number of the group from 5 people in this case, or potentially more people. You deal from 5 people down to just 2, because once you've taken those 2 people out, the rest of them will disperse. They will not give you any trouble. You go, get your mates out of here now, and get them to drag them away or whatever. I don't want to see you around, because if not, I'm going to battle every single last one of you. That's the kind of way that you can do it. You deal with the 2 most threatening members of the group, and the rest of them, as a result, should fall into place because they're not going to want to take the same kind of beating. It doesn't always happen like that. Sometimes you have to kind of play dominoes with them, hit one, you know, do one at a time. But generally speaking, that's the most efficient way of doing it. Now, this is me telling you on a sort of, you know, this shit is a fan. This is where your life kind of depends on it. Not really the situation that I gave you there, the example. That was a wrong thing, again, for me to do. But obviously, sometimes you will find yourself surrounded by people who want a vendetta. Or, for example, you're kicking out a drug dealer. For example, you've spotted, this has happened a few times, you throw out a drug dealer and then their gang, because they're part of a gang sometimes, will suddenly surround you and go, no, you can't kick him out, well, you know, this is our territory, so to speak, and then you find yourself surrounded. Again, the next thing to do is not only to deal with the 2 most significant threats within a group of men. It's also to make sure that you're not surrounded, literally physically surrounded. You always need to make sure that you've got your flanks or your rear at the very least secured by a wall. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't run, but then again, if you're not running, you're not running anyway. As the old Vikings used to say, if you run, you only die tired. It's nice to always have an escape route and to be aware of it, but ultimately, if you're being paid to defend a venue, you're there to defend it, okay? And so I would always have my back covered by some kind of physical obstruction to make sure that people couldn't fully surround me. So that way you got one person here, one person here, one person there. I'm taking 3 people on at a time. That's the most I could limit it to most of the time. And it's hard, don't get me wrong, but it's better to deal with 3 people than it is to deal with 5, 6, 7, 8 people at a time, because you can fit about 8 or 9 people around one person if they all sort of space themselves correctly. So it's a lot easier to deal with 3 people all attacking you from the front than it is 8 or 9 people, some from behind, some from the front, some from the side. It's a horrible position to find yourselves in. So that's one way of helping, again, deal with numbers. Now, the other thing is, what I've mentioned previously was weapons. Now, I was talking about blades and guns, okay, and that's, of course, my experience being with blades. Now, that's what's called sort of dedicated weaponry. Weapons that people are very, have a particular purpose for. They only use that weapon to hurt people. But of course, most of the time, a lot of people, when they're going to be hitting you with weapons, they're going to be hitting you with what's called improvised weapons. That is where they use the environment around you, and that again is something that you have to be aware of and something you have to manage. You have to make sure that if a fight's kicking off, that you try to keep out of arm's reach as best as possible anything that could be used as an improvised weapon, such as pool or snooker balls, pool cues or snooker cues. Chairs are a very common weapon to have. I've had women use chairs on me before. In that case, I knew they didn't have the strength to I knew they were not strong enough to hit me with the chair hard enough to do damage. So I just kind of, when they tried to hit me with the chair, kind of stepped in, let the chair kind of hit me, but then let it bounce off me and then grab them and deal with them. With a man who can hit you really hard with a chair, it's I suppose in some ways you've either got to take it or kind of make him swing and miss. Other weapons that can be used, of course, are ashtrays. Be careful of them. They are probably the most dangerous out of all the weapons that I've mentioned. And of course, the most dangerous is the glass. Broken bottle, beer glass, bang. Okay, because that's essentially a knife. I have been previously cut in my left shoulder with glass. When someone tried to glass me, and you deal with it like you would a knife. Normally, for some reason, they come over the top rather than. Luckily, they didn't come for me with a stabbing motion. They came with the over top. So I kind of went under his arm with my shoulder, picked him up and put him into the ground. Power slammed him into the ground, so to speak. But as I hit the ground with him, there was already broken glass on the floor, and it kind of went through my jacket into my shoulder. It was only a minor injury, but nonetheless, I did take some glass into me in those situations. So, you do get people trying to bottle you, and that's the most dangerous thing. Most places deal with that now by only serving plastic bottles, or it's in plastic glasses and stuff. But of course, a lot of old pubs where I used to work, for example, it is all glass. So it's just be aware of the kind of threats and weapons that people might use if they're a bit fucking, psychopathic and nasty and they really want to hurt you. But in those cases, again, what I said regards dedicated weaponry, deal with them quickly. Okay, deal with them quickly, and if have a stab vest, and if possible, obviously make sure you're supported by your other doorman. That's the other thing. It's better to then outnumber them. So okay, yes, they have a weapon, but you have numbers. Okay, that's enough on this one. It's a topic I don't really like to talk about too much because I feel like I'm almost encouraging it. I'm also giving a little bit of insight to the people who would use these kind of weapons or surround and hurt doormen. But it's something that still needs to be discussed at least, so people that other doormen out there understand how to potentially deal with situations. But guys, my word of advice is don't try to play the hero all the time. At the end of the day, understand your limits. If you cannot handle a situation, then call the police. Okay, then it's more responsible to to be to be responsible, and not to have to act the hero, but to call in people who can deal with it. You know, police who are armed, or your other doormen don't have to bear the weight of the world all on your own shoulders. Okay, bear in mind you will be working as a team, so act like a team. Anyway, guys, I wish you the best. I hope none of these situations ever present themselves to you, but I hope you found it entertaining at the same time. Thank you very much for tuning in. I will see you soon. I'm sure I'll have something to talk about, but if there's something you particularly want to hear about, or anything you want to hear me comment or talk about regards bouncing or anything along those lines, then please feel free to put it in the comments, and I'll try and make a video of it if there's something that can be said. Something that can be said about it. Lovely one, guys. Bye bye.